I'm their worst nightmare. I am their problem from their perception. But actually, if they were able to tweak their perception, I'm the answer to what they need.
Just another day that my Lord has kept me. Yes, it is just another day that I've been in my Savior's care. Yes, it is. Wanna say He threw His loving arms all around me. Yes, He did.
So first thing I wanted to chat to you about was the whole punk monk, alter ego kind of.
Yeah.
Like, basically, how did it actually come about?
Okay, basically when the monastery was still derelict, we were working out of a house at the back, and people used to come to us with requests for using the monastery for various things. And then along came Goldblade, John Robb, who's an absolute icon in the Manchester music scene, a music journalist. Number of bands he's involved in, Goldblade, The Membranes and what have you. And he turned up one day on his bike and said, really like to do a video in there of our latest song. So they came on the day, and John knew that I was a Franciscan and said, have you got a habit? And I said, I don't do drugs. And he said, no, have you got one of them monk habits? So I said, yeah. He said, could you possibly just be in the background? And at the end, we come out together. And they said to me, you really got into the song. We didn't expect you to. And I said, well, it's a catchy song. The song was called My Name is Psycho. So the band said, will you come and introduce us at our next gig? And I said, yeah, sure. Where is it? And they said, Satan's Hollow. So I said, oh, brilliant. I've never been there. If the average young person in this club turned up at the average church, the chances that they'd receive the welcome I've just received would be pretty slim, sadly. So I introduced the band and sang with them on a couple of numbers, and but it was a great opportunity for me to say, good evening, Satan's Hollow. Do you know, I've always known that. and they loved the banter. So then they invited me to kind of come along, and they nicknamed me Punk Monk, which kind of stuck. And I'd always kind of known, really, that the people on the margins, who people tend to think of as not quite as worthy as us, you know, were actually the ones who were doing the most. I now know I've got Asperger's syndrome. It wasn't on anybody's radar in those days, so I was just the troublesome kid who was disruptive. I know why I was disruptive, but when you're a kid, you assume that everybody knows what you know. So, you know, when your teacher is telling you something that they told you three weeks ago or 3 months ago, you think, why are you telling me this again? Do you think I'm stupid? You've already told me this. You don't realise that most kids actually need to hear things several times. And so you get quite disruptive.
Come on, Mr. Cameron, kick a poor man now.
Well, as you grow up, if you're lucky enough to be able to understand the process, eventually it can become a gift rather than a problem. And in fact, I honestly believe that my Asperger's is one of the best gifts I've ever had. The story itself was fascinating to me. I remember the first time as a toddler my older sister read me the story of Samuel as a boy in the temple, and it just really fascinated me, and it fit with my earliest memories of where of where I was before I came here, before I became this organism. But then there was lots of overlaying stuff that tended to take what children intuitively know, and there's a lovely story of a 3-year-old going into his newly born sister's room at night, and the parents a bit anxious in case he's jealous, tiptoe to the door to listen, and he's saying to her, "Quick, tell me, what's it like? Tell me now before you forget." And I think there's a lot of truth in that children actually know things that adults assume a superior knowledge on, because they always assume their wisdom is better, that years make for wisdom. Children are often not heard, not understood. What's my standpoint with religion? I'm not a religious person anymore. I've not lost my faith. I've lost my faith in religion. I've not lost my faith in God. And for me, religion is all the stuff that kind of, it's almost like nationalism, you know, the mentality that says everybody who thinks like this, everybody who does this, everybody who fits into this group is in, and I belong to them and they belong to me, but everyone else is out of that. And that's one of the problems. These figures, the ones that people universally recognise as people in touch with the divine, are not in the religious box. They don't fit in the religious box. And I think one of the things that's happening in society now is the vast majority of people are actually more aligned to the Gandhis, the Mother Teresas, the Nelson Mandelas, than they are to a religious box. What does God mean to me? God is a kind of shorthand for something you know that's out there, but something that you can't pin down. And anybody who claims to be able to pin God down, walk away from them. They're dangerous. So for me, I've always had a sense of the presence of God from being an infant, always, until I had an experience in childhood that gave me a sense of the absence of God, and that lasted from the age of 10 to the age of 20, and then I had to rediscover the connection. And the experience was an encounter with a serial killer who was murdering children, and I was one of the lucky ones, and there are a number of them in this community who had narrow escapes.
When I was 10, Ian Brady tried to persuade me to get in a car. He didn't touch me. Luckily, he annoyed me, and basically it just made me cheeky, and I walked away. But when I found out what he'd intended, the way it internalised was really difficult.
All those children who survived are actually now, as adults, community builders. As a military chaplain, there's another correlation with what in military circles is called survivors syndrome, where the soldier who's been in a situation where close friends have died comes away thinking, why have I survived when those more worthy people, those great people, have died? And so there's a sense of guilt and trauma, which is one of the reasons I'm working so closely with ex-military, that people with post-traumatic stress syndrome. who are carrying this burden of feeling responsible for something that wasn't their responsibility, worthless when actually they were, you know, they're quite worthy. So, yeah, religion can be, as Marx said, the opium of the masses, the thing that keeps them asleep, that keeps them in a kind of drowsy, unaware or comfortable place. They're all's well with the world, thank you very much, instead of the place where they need to be. I remember one of the best things that ever happened to me on leaving school at 14 with no qualifications, getting into a dead-end job and realising the only way to get out was to teach myself. I went for a job in a bookshop because I needed to be near books. It was a phenomenal thing because it became the engine room of everything that's happened since. So they gave me the religious section, and it was full of Bibles, and I'm thinking, hang on, there's more than one religion, what's this? So I started to develop it and bring in books on Hinduism, and then it was books on paganism, and suddenly we had this amazing section where you could find out about anything from astral projection to wizardry and whatever. And it was suddenly, the shop was being filled with really interesting characters who were coming because it was the only bookshop that was selling this range of material. And it was where I started to explore my own mind, body, emotions, and everything beyond, and learnt to do things that everyone can do, but very, very few of us realise we can. I've always loved music. Most people love listening to music. I particularly am drawn to music that tells the human story, so I used to love the blues. Really got deeply into the blues. Aspergers tend to do that, you know, get into something and then go on to something else. We all have our dinosaur phase. And so with music, I suddenly started to see the connection between music like the blues, folk music, civil rights music, and how in all sorts of different ways they're kind of ventilating the human experience. And so there was a period when, for example, listening to gangster rap with young people, where all the adults around me were going, oh my God, that's awful, those lyrics are terrible. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these young people are ventilating, this is what we're doing to them, we need to listen to this music and we need to understand so that it can shift. If I'm honest, when I first heard punk, having grown up with the Beatles and the Stones, and it was, what the chuff is this? Where's this come from? And because I asked the question, I found the answer and thought, that's really important, that it needs to be listened to. So one of the things I love about punk is that it isn't technical. It isn't about being able to make the right notes. It's about raw expression of stuff that's going on for you, for society, for other young people. I always sing to I sing to an audience, and when you sing in a hymn, your audience is the divine. And so this sense, I always have this sense of, actually, you're listening, and I want this to be good. And I know I've got a loud, raucous voice. I know I'm not, you know, a gifted singer, but I can give it some decibels. And I think when you sing, when I sing, the song impacts me. In fact, I'd find it really difficult to sing a song that didn't have any meaning for me. My youngest son got a virus when he was 17 days old that was literally closing down his vital organs. And my conversation with God was, you know, basically, what are you doing? This is my lad. You're not taking him before me, you know. It's not right that a father should outlive his child and all that. But then I got to a place where I thought, hang on, I'm asking you to give me my son back. But because of all that's happened, he would now be profoundly handicapped. And it's not me who's got to live that life. So give me the confidence to let go and the courage to keep going for my other children and for Elaine and all that. And that moment was the moment when the amazing thing happened. And when we phoned the hospital to tell them that we knew he was dead, because as we left they were dismantling the life support, they told us that actually he wasn't. And it was the moment I'd realised that it wasn't me who was going to live that life. And we had him with us for 9 years. And it was an amazing time of learning about life and death and personal choice and so many things. And not many people are given that experience that we were blessed to have. The realisation that you can't make a decision for another person.
We come with all your broken people. We come with the broken in spirit, with the despondent and the despairing. We come with the broken in mind, with the deeply distressed and the disturbed. We come with the broken in body, with all who are injured and all who are ill. We bring all these human needs before you. Those who are grieving the loss of a loved one at this time. Those who are driven to despair, to suicide. We bring all this fragmentation to you. Because, Lord, broken on the cross, we come to you. Only you can make us whole.
I've never done a funeral where people have not laughed. So when somebody's died, even if it's tragic, there'll be all sorts of emotions around. And when you do the family visits, you'll pick up. There might be anger. There might even be a sense of blame. It could be self-blame. It could be blame of the dead person. Why did you leave me? But you can't articulate it because of all the social taboos. So people are often locked in this kind of emotional ball. And humour often helps unravel that ball and unravel all the other emotions And if it's not done properly, it can be dangerous. But if it's done respectfully, with total regard for the memory of the deceased person, and also the sensitivities around, it's a very healthy thing. And it seems to me that very often funerals are not healthy things. If they adhere to a script, they can be very damaging. If they're all about God and Jesus or whatever, they can be very damaging. They've got to be pertinent to the person and their circumstances and those who are there remembering. You know, it's often you know you'll get people who will talk about their Auntie Joyce who remember her at the discos, and they won't know they're telling you this, but when you sat there, they'll say to each other, "Oh, do you remember when we were at the disco and she used to always have her handbag round in the floor?" There's many a funeral where I've put a handbag in the middle of the floor and danced to a piece of music in the middle, and other people have gone, "Yay, that's Auntie Joyce," and got up and danced around the handbag, and it's released this tension. And it's not everyone's comfortable doing that, and I guess, and if I'm honest, priests are not trained to do that. They're not trained to understand how to deal with all the emotions that might be around. I've got to throw in a joke. This lovely story of two Jewish resistance fighters waiting for Adolf Hitler's car to cross a manhole under which they've planted a bomb so they can detonate it. And one looks at his watch and says, "He should have been here 10 minutes ago." And the other one says, "I hope nothing's happened to him." And I love Jewish humour because it actually deals with the pain and hardship and the atrocity and finds a way, despite, to laugh. But one of the stories I've never forgotten from somebody who'd liberated, a soldier who'd been involved in the liberation of a concentration camp, being told that some of the survivors had witnessed a day when a young German soldier was posted to the camp. And you could see the change in him as he began to take in what was going on. And they could sense that internally he was having to make a personal decision. Was he going to collude with what was happening and never be able to forgive himself? What would he do? You could see this was a human being who cared, who hadn't been stripped down to the tool of the Nazi war machine. And what he did, he was stripped down to his underwear, took his uniform off, and joined the crowd who were walking to the gas chambers, and just became one of them. And he was put in that position. That was the best thing he could do for his humanity. Hopefully, few of us will be put in some positions. But how we behave when we are, well, is a mark of who you are. Right, negotiating, how did that come about? By accident. And one day, I was in the city centre of Manchester, in Lewis's store, minding my own business, when I spotted a guy being taken by a security guard into an office. He'd been caught shoplifting. He broke away, climbed through a window and got on the roof. So I thought, that guy's in distress. So I climbed through another window at the other side of the building and walked round so that I would naturally come to where he was, but appear, because although I'd noticed him, the chances that he'd noticed me were very slim. So that I would appear as just happening on the scene. And I said, "Hey, all right there, mate?" And I got into conversation. And the long and short of it was, I talked the guy off the roof.
And so, over time, from time to time, somehow, although I've never been trained in it, folk know that if they throw me into the mix, in some circumstances, things don't have to get as bad as they could, if that makes sense. And so I've worked with military organisations, obviously with the police, but also just walking down the street. So I guess what it is I do is walk into people's storms. And I don't go with thinking I can make a difference, because that's your ego, you can't. And that's where my God comes in. When I know, I mean, as soon as I know I'm going towards something, I start saying something along the lines of, oh, Divine Spirit, help me to focus and guide me to be more of you and less of me. And so I guess I'm answering your question, what does God mean to me? I think God is the best of me, the best of you, the best of all of us, in and beyond everything. That place of fulfillment and meaning that we can all attain, and yet somehow we struggle to find. Judging from what people call me, usually affectionately, anything from Mad Monk, Punk Monk, the Crazy Rev, whatever. I'm a misfit. But again, judging from what people say to me, I'm a misfit. And I think you almost said it earlier, who actually, all my life says, if this guy can do it, if this guy's okay, I'm okay. And my grandson actually put it really well. His teacher said to him, who are your role models and why? And he, amongst the role models he listed, he said, my granddad, because he's as nutty as a fruitcake, but he doesn't care what people think about that.